Over 600 years ago, long before Columbus reached the shores of America, a great civilization developed in the Andes Range. It was Tahuntinsuyu, the Inca Empire, inhabited by 12 million people. The Incas came to power in the mid-15th century. They created a law-abiding society and a well-developed agricultural system. They had high astrological, mathematical, and medical knowledge, but above all, they were perfect engineers, building stone cities and a sophisticated road system. The Inca civilization developed over 100 years without the use of wheels, draft animals, metal tools, or writing. When the civilization was in full bloom to the shores of Tahuntinsuyu, Spanish galleons arrived, led by Francisco Pizarro, bringing destruction. It was 1532. Within a few months, on behalf of God and the Spanish king, for fame and for greed, bearded people from beyond the Great Water conquered and drowned the Inca civilization in a sea of blood. The survivors of the Inca army, led by Emperor Manco Inca and Inca nobles, took refuge in the Andes outskirts in Espiritu Pampa, where they created an insurgent kingdom with a new capital, the city of Vilcabamba. From there, for 36 years, they harassed the conquistadors until the year 1572, when the Spanish penal expedition conquered and completely destroyed the rebellious city, condemning them to oblivion and leaving it to be absorbed by the tropical forest. At the same time, according to legend, the huge treasures of the Inca were hidden in the city. This is how the legend of the lost city and hidden treasure was born. After centuries, this legend ignited the minds of adventurers, travelers, and archaeologists, who became determined to rediscover this enigmatic city. In the history of the search for Vilcabamba, its location was attributed to various archaeological sites. The first location that was considered was the ruins of Choquequirao, located on a mountain pass at an altitude of over 3,000 meters above sea level, where excavations have been carried out since the 18th century. For this reason, I started my adventure by visiting the ruins of Choquequirao. In my trekking to Choquequirao, I started from a small settlement called Cachora. Today, a demanding trail leads to the ruins, 40 kilometers long, with elevations exceeding more than 3,000 meters. A small caravan hired by me consisted of Julio as a guide, Uriel, the muleteer, and his 3 mules, loaded with equipment and food needed for 4 days of activity in the mountainous terrain.
A la altura de 2.750 metros sobre el nivel del mar. Nuestra trayectoria primero va a ser descender por el camino mayormente plano, pero bajada, hasta el río Apurima, para después tener un almuerzo en el sector de Santa Rosa Baja. Luego vamos a empezar a subir el camino de zigzag que ven todo hasta el final. Tope se encuentra un pueblo pequeño, se llama Marampata.
The trail went through a sandy, rust-colored slope surrounded by wonderful Andean nature. I traveled in the shadow of the eternally snow-capped peaks of Padrayoc, Padrayoca, and Huayna Cachor. Admiring the mountains, I felt a moving experience of how small and helpless is man in the face of primordial nature. In the Inca Empire, the city of Choquequirao played an important role. Located on the edge of the empire, it was a link of communication and exchange of goods between savage tribes living in the Amazon jungle and the capital of the Inca Empire, the city of Cusco. It was inhabited by several thousand subjects. Around noon, after 5 hours of walking in the potent sun, we reached the bottom of one of the deepest canyons in Peru, the Apurimac River. After an hour's stay at Dzikowska hostel, intended for rest, food, and repacking, we crossed the iron bridge on the rapid Apurimac River and began a more than 2-kilometer-long approach to the pass. In the middle of the slope, I came across a horseshoe, a symbol of happiness and fulfillment of desires. Finding a horseshoe was for me a catalyst of extra energy in this demanding trek. I got to the mountain village of Marampata at dusk, at time when thundering storm clouds formed over the Milky Way in the night sky above me. After supper I fell asleep, exhausted from the long day of hiking, dreaming about lost cities, forgotten old ruins, and hidden treasures. The next morning, I was greeted with a unique view, the ruins of Choquequirao suspended between the blue sky and the green mountain meadows on a high ridge. After breakfast, we set off toward the ruins, when I noticed a large moth in the roadside bushes. It was a cecropia, which have transparent crescents on the wings imitating eyes. This butterfly in Inca mythology was considered as an emissary between the world of the living and the world of the dead.
¡Vámonos!
Another kilometer, I continued my journey encountering endemic plants and original flowers in the meadows and charming hills. I pitched my camp on the outskirts of the stony town. I was the only lucky tourist who arrived on that day. The Choquequirao complex covers 10 square kilometers. In the era of the Incas, it was a large administrative center serving the political, social, and economic functions of the region. Choquequirao means cradle of gold. For this reason, for decades, the city was associated with Vilcabamba, where the treasures of the Incas were to be hidden. Still today, Choquequirao impresses with the complexity and beauty of its stone structures. Temples, administrative buildings, and stone-lined channels carried ceremonial water were built around a central square, while residential buildings and huge granaries were located on the edges of the city. Most structures were roofed with wood and thatch. The central place in the city is occupied by the ceremonial square with the Pachacuti citadel.
Przepiękne, niesamowite. I jesteśmy w dolinie rzeki Apurimac, w ruinach Choquequirao. Tutaj ruiny te były uważane prawie do końca XIX wieku za ostatnią stolicę Inków, Vilcabambę. Tak naprawdę Manco Inca po nieudanym oblężeniu Cusco schronił się tu na kilka miesięcy, by później przenieść się do Witus, a na końcu do Espiritus Pampa, do starej Vilcabamby.
Dominating above the city is Sunchupata, a 50-meter artificial platform, from where the Incas paid tribute and adorned the ancestral deities called Apis, gods who lived and ruled from inaccessible peaks, gilded canyons, and from the firmament of heavens. In Inca mythology, man was only one of the elements of the universe. Incas believed that the earth was alive, and selected elements of nature had the characteristics of sanctity. They defined them with the term huaca. The surrounding nature was a mythical space, through which the universal forces of life and death flows, forming the Paquirina zone. Located 1,800 meters above the Apurimac River on a mountain pass, and surrounded by high, snow-capped peaks, the city of Choquequirao fulfilled these conditions. Located on a steep slope, cultivation terraces show the high engineering level of the Incas. On these, Incas built 80 wide platforms in a stepped arrangement for the cultivation of corn, beans, tomatoes, and sweet potatoes. The crops were watered with canals carved in the rock. The retaining walls of the terraces were made of shale stone, while decorative motifs of llamas and geometric ornaments were from white quartz. Archaeologists believe that only 40% of the area of the ancient Choquequirao has been excavated to this day. This means that a lot of unknown buildings and structures still remain hidden under the canopy of the tropical jungle. Due to difficulties in reaching the ruins, the area can be seen almost in the same condition in which a young American researcher, Hiram Bingham, found them in 1909. Here, in the ruins of Hiram, heard the old legend about the lost last capital of the Incas, the city of Vilcabamba. Inspired by it, he returned to Peru in 1911 with the planning of discovering the Stone City. 4 centuries had passed since the Incas abandoned the city of Vilcabamba, when Hiram Bingham returned to Peru with the intention of finding it. Hiram Bingham's path to a great explorer started in Cusco, in the ancient capital of the Incas. Cusco was called by the Incas Navel of the World and the Holy City. It's located in a mountain valley at an altitude of 3,500 meters above sea level. Cusco was the political and spiritual heart of the Inca Empire, from where the emperor managed it. The Inca emperors were believed to be deities on earth, with the status of son of the sun god Inti. Today, on the main square in Cusco, stands a monument to the mythical emperor of the Incas, Pachacuti, meaning the one who changes the world. Pachacuti ruled the empire in the 15th century. He began the great territorial expansion of the Incas, reformed the state, and introduced the cult of the sun. But 60 years after his death, black clouds gathered over Tahuntinsuyo, carrying the specter of annihilation and fall. Bleedings from civil war, being conquered by the Spanish conquistadors, and contaminated by infectious diseases dragged from Europe, the empire was dying. It is estimated that during the reign of the Incas, the Cusco metropolis had 150,000 inhabitants, and architecturally matched the cities of Renaissance Europe. However, it did not keep the Spaniards from their destructive urge. In the center of the city, where the Temple of the Sun, Coricancha, covered with gold once stood, a Dominican monastery was set up. On the ruins of the House of the Virgins of the Sun, the monastery of St. Catherine was built. In the shadows of the cathedrals and colonial houses, only Inca cobbled streets remained intact, silent heirloom of the most powerful empire of America. Just above Cusco stood the Cyclopean walls of the Sacsayhuaman fortress. In May 1536, a bloody battle took place in the field in front of the Sacsayhuaman. The ruler of the Inca, Manco Inca, began rebellion against the Spanish invaders. After gathering over 100,000 soldiers, he began the siege of Cusco. However, after months of fighting, he was unable to break the resistance of the Spaniards defending the city. Manco withdrew from Cusco and took refuge in the remote Amazon jungle, where he created the foundations of a new insurgent Inca state called the Kingdom of Vilcabamba. In Cusco, Hiram Bingham rummaged in the old Spanish chronicles looking for information about the location of the last capital of Vilcabamba. Afterwards, he hired local guides and went to the Andes slopes to the Urubamba Valley. During the expedition, on July 24th, at an altitude of over 2,000 meters, he reached the ruins of Machu Picchu, which was unknown to Western culture. By doing this, he became part of history. Machu Picchu is the top achievement of the Inca builders. Creators of the city have charmed the perfection in stone, creating a symbiosis of the surrounding space with the architecture. Ruins of Machu Picchu are limited on 3 sides by the river of the Urubamba, the river of the sun, and from the south by the peak of Huayna Picchu. Machu Picchu has no defensive walls, so there was no fortress. It was a religious center and a watchtower located 80 kilometers away from Cusco. On the narrow mountain saddle, there are over 200 buildings made of precisely cut stones that have been individually shaped to fit closely with one another. It is composed of two main parts, an upper city and a lower part. The upper site contains housing for elites, temples, palaces, religious shrines, and fountains, as well as famous carved boulder located in the ritual area of the main plaza called Intihuatana, translated from Quechua as hitching post of the sun. It is a quadrangular megalithic spire forged from one granite block, performing an astronomical function. There are also cult buildings like the Condor Temple, a natural rock formation partially machined by the Incas. It's reminiscent of a condor messenger preparing for flight. In the Inca lower city of the hill lies the agrarian section with cultivated terraces. Terraces were a common element of highland agriculture. They increased the arable land surface and reduced erosion by creating walled steps down the sides of steep mountains. Each step was planted with crops.
Jesteśmy w sercu Machu Picchu, ruin odkrytych przez Amerykanina Hirona Bigmana w lipcu 1911 roku. Przybył on do Peru z jednym celem, aby odnaleźć i zlokalizować ostatnią stolicę Inków, Vilcabambę. W lipcu dociera tu, w sierpniu dociera na przednóża prawdziwej Vilcabamby w dolinie Espiritu Pampa. Jednak tamte budowle dla niego są za mało efektowne, aby stać się stolicą. Znajduje też dachówki, które dla niego znaczą, że były to budowle wykonane przez Hiszpanów. Dlatego powraca do Machu Picchu, prowadzi wykopaliska i ogłasza, że to miejsce jest ostatnią stolicą Inków, Vilcabambą.
Machu Picchu was once the full of city of life, and today it still surprises with mystery and beauty. The site was chosen for its relationship to the Andean landscape. The silent ghosts of the past, trapezoidal windows like altars, were sightlines to mountain peaks. The Incas' deities, called Apis, guardians of the cloudy city and its inhabitants. In the Machu Picchu complex, the Inca Emperor was worshipped as a master of water, as well as celestial objects such as the sun, moon, stars, and lightning. After the discovery of Machu Picchu, Hiram Bingham went further into the Andes, and after a month of exploration, he reached the valley of Espiritu Pampa, the place corresponding to the geographical location of Vilcabamba, from the Spanish-written accounts of the conquest period. In Espiritu Pampa, he encountered unknown fragments of ruins, and after finding clay tiles in them, he abandoned exploration, recognizing that these ruins are a remnant of an old Spanish settlement. Sadly, he never realized that during his time in Espiritu Pampa, he reached the city of Vilcabamba he was looking for. After returning from the expedition, the confused Hiram Bingham mistakenly announced that Machu Picchu was Vilcabamba, the last capital of the Inca. The magic of Hiram Bingham's name was so great that this statement was in force for the next half-century. However, not everyone was convinced. In the mid-20th century, a new wave of adventurers set out to locate the enigmatic Vilcabamba in the Espiritu Pampa. In my adventure with the legendary Inca trail leading to Vilcabamba, I began in the village of Huancacaye, lying halfway between two previously visited stone towns, Machu Picchu and Choquequirao, and my main goal, Vilcabamba, located 200 kilometers southeast from Cusco. In 1976, an expedition set off from here, organized by the Peruvian historian Edmundo Guillén, in which two Polish journalists, Elżbieta Dzikowska and Halik, took part in an attempt to reach Vilcabamba.
Jesteśmy w małej miejscowości Huaycacaye, skąd po 6 dniach powinien dotrzeć do ostatniej stolicy Inków, starej Vilcabamby w dolinie Espiritu Pampa. Będę podążał dokładnie szlakiem wyprawy z roku 1976, w której udział wzięli Tony Halik i Elżbieta Dzikowska, a zorganizował ją profesor z Limy Edmundo Guillén. Dzisiaj chcę jeszcze zobaczyć ruiny Witus i Juragrumi, świętego miejsca Inków.
In the village of Huancacalle, I met Juvenal Cobos, who confirmed that his father Julio and older brother Flavio participated in the expedition of Edmundo Guillén. He also remembered that Polish journalists were taking part in the expedition. After the expedition, they wrote a book under the title Vilcabamba, the last capital of the Incas, which I set out on the trail with.
Después de Espíritu Pampa, todo ha hecho recorrido por Espíritu Pampa, salió también para adentro.
Caminando con dos polacos, Elżbieta Dzikowski y Tony Halik.
Yo no sabía su nombre, pero eran de Polonia, Polonia, con él han trabajado.
Cumpleaños, 40 años que es esta experiencia. Yo viene aquí con lo mismo, camino lo mismo ruta que ellos, que esta expedición. I przed nami ruiny Rosa Pata, czyli Witus, ruiny największego fortu pogranicznego w królestwie Vilcabamba. Ten fort był kilka razy zdobywany przez Hiszpanów. Manco Inca musiał stąd uciekać, chronić się, dlatego przeniósł się w głębiej, w dolinę amazońską, w dolinę Espiritu Pampa do Vilcabamby.
Very close to Huancacalle, on the top of a hill at an altitude of over 3,000 meters above sea level, a two-level fortress reigns, surrounded by a pink stone wall called Witus, or Rosaspata, from Quechua, the language used by the Incas. It was in this fortress, after the failure of the rebellion from under Cusco, that Manco Inca took refuge. It was built as a royal estate for the first Inca emperor, Pachacuti, in the middle of the 15th century. Protected on one side by the Cayara Ravine and on the other side by Pachaco River. It was the largest fortress on the border of the Vilcabamba kingdom. The fortress consisted of several buildings on an open courtyard and royal residence with an impressive facade with 12 stone gates. Witus is also the place where Emperor Manco Inca died. He was treacherously stabbed by a group of Spaniard fugitives whom he offered safe haven and care. In 1911, when searching for the last capital of the Incas, Hiram Bingham visited this region as well, and he found a nearby sanctuary associated with the palace complex in Witus called Juragrumi, White Rock, the holy stone monolith of the Incas. Incas around Juragrumi erected a temple and shrine dedicated to the cult of the sun, the deity of Inti. It was the most mystical and sacred Inca place in the Vilcabamba kingdom. This 17-meter long and 8-meter high granite disc-shaped monolith had been subjected to many modifications by the Incas. Carved seats, pools, consoles, niches, and bumps were deliberately placed on the walls of the rock, so in the most important days in the Inca astrological calendar, the sunlight will illuminate selected points. In this stone, the Inca priests embodied cosmological thought.
Była to największa świątynia słońca w królestwie Vilcabamba. Co roku zbierała się tu szlachta, Inkowie, szamani, by oddawać cześć najważniejszym bóstwom w ich religii: słońcu, księżycowi i ziemi.
That evening at the farm where we camped, I met a self-taught young artist who presented me his drawings on the facade of a family wooden hut.
Mi nombre es primeramente Edmundo. Bueno, este lugar es Minas Mayo.
Rica, sí.
Entonces yo lo que primero he empezado es agarrar un lápiz y como primero dibujarlo, ¿no? Sí. Con un lápiz así suavemente. Después utilicé la témpera. Entonces con la témpera empecé a decorarlo.
Next day, just outside the village of Huancacalle, I entered the old stone road of the Incas. From the moment I set my foot on the paved trail, I felt that I started my trek to the legend. This old road was a remnant of a vast system of stone road networks with a total length of over 40,000 kilometers, integrating the Inca Empire. The road provides transportation and military and religious purposes for the Inca, and in places where it was impossible to build a road, rope suspension bridges were built. A few days earlier, I was admiring the last surviving hanging bridge built with the old technique.
Jesteśmy na moście Queshuachaca na rzece Apurímac, ostatni wiszący inkajski most w Peru, a prawdopodobnie w Ameryce Południowej. Identyczne mosty były budowane w Imperium Inkajskim, Tawantinsuyu. Takie mosty łączyły całe państwo, łączyły słynne inkajskie drogi.
The Queshuachaca Bridge is a 90-foot-long bridge that stretched between two sides of the Rocky Canyon, flung over the 40-meter-high ravine at the Apurímac River. The local shepherd told me about its construction.
Ese puente es el puente de los Incas todavía, ese puente Queshuachaca. Ya ese a nosotros hemos visto, porque lo más cuatro, entonces total. Acá entra más para el piso, porque para que resiste el piso, ¿no? Para que pasen. Este puentecito pasan 10, 15, 8, hace 30 o 40, según la grosura, juntamos así, harto, así. Entonces recién, doblamos otra vuelta así, igualito que mira.
Every year in June, it is rebuilt by the inhabitants of the Queje village in 3 days, made with huge ropes of agave fibers, twisted with grass shoots of quioya. Their ends are anchored to the original Inca stone foundations on both sides of the ravine. Vertical stretches twisted from grass and alpaca wool join the side railings, and tightly arranged branches form a narrow, swaying footbridge.
Identyczny most na rzece Urubamba, most Dzidy, natomiast był mostem granicznym, rozdzielał nowe państwo Vilcabamby, królestwo Vilcabamby od hiszpańskich konkwistadorów.
The next day, we climbed the Copajas Pass, which separates the Vilcabamba Valley from the Pampaconas Valley, lying at an altitude of 3,800 meters above sea level. It was a natural gateway to the Vilcabamba Kingdom. At the mountain pass, we came across the natural mineral springs known and used by the Incas.
Aquí es una sal y mineral. Acá trabajaban los incas sal. Eso es sal natural.
Nearby on the hillside, there were quarries from where the Incas were acquiring blocks of rock to build their cities, roads, and aqueducts.
Estos incas los sacan de esto, los restos se lo llevan para Vilcabamba, los restos a Papacón. Se llama piedra jiwaya, piedra macho, piedra más fuerte. Con eso lo golpeaban. Más antes algo así. Plan, y ya está. Los restos solito se cortaba, solito salía con una taja, con una adobe. Para el camino inca, para la construcción, para los chulpas, para todo.
I dalej na drodze Inków schodzimy teraz do doliny Pampacones. Będziemy schodzić niżej, aż do dżungli, aż do doliny Espiritus Pampa.
Deep in the heart of the Peruvian Andes, in a forgotten valley, covered with dense jungle, stands the ancient city. It was destroyed by the Spanish conquistadors, plundered, and forgotten. It stands as a testimony to resistance, heroism, and the fight for independence. The city of Vilcabamba. After crossing the Continental Water Department, the Papacona stream began to accompany us in our journey. We slowly descended from the Andes, the planet's longest mountain range, which disappears in the Amazon, the world's largest tropical forest.
Esta planta se llama sachaparajay, como una ace o como una detergente, como una jabón, es para lavar ropas. Más antes los incas utilizaban de eso.
500 years ago, the Inca used the road system for a variety of purposes. Messengers, called chasquis, ran with kepu, the talking knots, with the news and orders from the ruler. The king's servant carried in the little Manco Inca, visiting the Witus fortress or the temple complex in Urek Rumi. The armed units of the Inca warriors were being sent to the crucial points of the kingdom. The remains from the past on the stone trail are relay stations called tambos, which formerly provided shelter for couriers, messengers, and served the army as food and weapons depots.
Los chasquis, a lo mucho. Ellos caminaban muy bien, muy rápido, y luego descansaban aquí algunos. Al día siguiente se van hasta Espíritu Pampa.
The lost city of Vilcabamba hid from the Western world for almost 400 years. The Peruvian Professor Edmundo Guillén decided to admittedly find it. After years spent reading documents in the Indian archives in Seville, he found letters written by soldiers who took part in the Vilcabamba conquest, in which the soldiers described the invasion, its route, and the architectural and topographic details of Vilcabamba. Based on this information, he organized his own expedition in 1976. He invited Halik and Dzikowska to join him, and together they went to the Andes to find it.
I kolejny dzień naszej wyprawy śladem ekspedycji Edmunda Guilléna z roku 1976. Cały czas podążamy starą drogą Inków. Tą samą trasą podążał Tony Halik i Elżbieta Dzikowska. Tony Halik, człowiek urodzony dla przygody. Któż go nie znał? Człowiek, na którego filmy i relacje z wypraw czekała cała Polska.
Tony Halik is a hero of many generations of Polish travelers. His personality was a combination of an old English gentleman mixed with the easygoing manner of the Latin American people. He was able to find himself in diplomatic summits and among primitive tribes. He was an ethnographer, journalist, excellent photographer, and filmmaker, and the leading Polish travel
Czy
propagator.
wiecie, dlaczego Chiwarosi, ci łowcy głów z Ekwadoru, zmniejszają samce do wielkości pomarańczy?
Mimo koloru skóry udało mi się zdobyć zaufanie Indian.
He wrote a dozen books, made several hundred television programs, such as Pepper and Vanilla, Last Free Indians, and Paths into the Unknown. He was my mentor, and he implanted in me love for adventure and travel. Thanks to him, I stopped dreaming and turned my dreams into reality. The desire to reach something unknown lies in all of us and stimulates our dreams. But sometimes it is more important to experience incomparable moments on the journey than the goal itself. We camped in an abandoned farm near our trail on the bank of the Pampacona stream.
Rozpoczyna się kolejny dzień prawdziwej przygody. I dalej do Doliny Duchów, w kierunku ostatniej stolicy Inków, Vilcabamby.
In pursuit of the old legend, I crossed the mountains, pampas, and jungle. Following the path of the 16th century Spanish conquistadors and later explorers, I overcame natural obstacles and, in extreme conditions, I trudged ahead to the ruins of Vilcabamba. Like my mentor, 40 years earlier, Tony Halik and his team, I was moving forward, inspired by his story.
Dżungla wokół nas paruje, jest duszno, parno. Temperatura dochodzi do około 35 stopni Celsjusza. Wilgotność na pewno około 90%. Od stolicy dzieli nas około 2 dni marszu. Idziemy dalej w głębi dżungli i dalej drogą kamienną, drogą Inków. Ile poświęcenia, ile wysiłku wymagało, żeby taką drogę stworzyć. Tu w środku dżungli, w sercu dżungli. Żeby ona przez tyle lat była dalej możliwa do użytku. Cały czas idziemy po kamiennych płytach. Droga niemal całkowicie zanikła. Jest tylko wąska, zarośnięta ścieżka. Co chwilę wychodzimy na jakieś otwarte przestrzenie. Ścięte pnie zagradzają nam drogę i znów zanurzamy się w gęstą, zieloną dżunglę. Cały czas spod spróchniałego podłoża wystają jakieś płaskie, duże kamienie. Dowody na to, że ta ścieżka dalej tu jest. Widać, że jest to bardzo rzadko uczęszczany obszar. Bardzo mało ludzi, tubylców nawet można powiedzieć, tędy przechodzi. I znów zaczynamy zdobywać wysokość. Idziemy coraz wyżej, metr za metrem do góry, aby dojść do przełęczy, a później znów zejść na dół. Tak wygląda trasa do Vilcabamby. Wspinaczka w górę, a później w dół. Powoli robimy kolejne kilometry, przybliżając się do Espiritus Pampa. Jest ciężko, ale sam cel dodaje siły. Jeszcze do obozu, gdzie mamy się dzisiaj zatrzymać, zostało około 2 godzin marszu. Chcemy zdążyć przed zmrokiem, aby rozbić namioty, przygotować kolację i schronić się przed deszczem. Rozpoczyna się już za kilka tygodni pora deszczowa i przelotne burze występują niemal każdej nocy. I ostatni dzień wyprawy. Wyruszyliśmy dzisiaj bardzo wcześnie, około godziny 6. Na godzinę 12, czyli w samo południe, powinniśmy dotrzeć do Doliny Espiritu Pampa, Doliny Duchów i do naszego celu, czyli ostatniej stolicy Inków, Vilcabamby. Rozpoczęliśmy naszą wędrówkę z wysokości prawie 4000 metrów. Dzisiaj jesteśmy na około 2000. Po przebyciu około 70 kilometrów przez ciężki teren docieramy do naszego celu. Vamos para Espiritu Pampa, Vilcabamba Grande. Vámonos.
Vámonos, luego llegamos de acá unos 40 minutos, 1 hora.
I przed nami Espiritu Pampa, Dolina Duchów.
The Royal Inca Stairs led me to the outskirts of the legendary city. The enigmatic Espiritu Pampa stood in front of me.
Po 5 dniach wędrówki, po przejściu ponad 70 kilometrów, dotarliśmy do celu. Vilcabamba, ostatnia stolica Inków, przed nami.
In 1911, Hiram Bingham arrived also to the ruins at Espiritu Pampa, but after 3 days of research, he ignored them due to the erroneous assumption that the Incas did not settle in the jungle. Evidence of his presence in the ruins is a famous photo on a small stone bridge leading to the main square in the city. I could not miss this opportunity, and after setting myself up with my guide Pablo in an identical pose as our predecessors from the century before, we took photos.
To jest centrum, główny plac starej Vilcabamby. Do dnia dzisiejszego zostało odrestaurowanych około 30%. Także 70% jeszcze jest w objęciach dżungli.
In the central square, I came across a phallic motif stone, a symbol of strength. Not far from it stood a huge granite rock, Huaca, a sacred monolith of Incas. On the edge of the square, I saw piles of old roof tiles. Here, in Vilcabamba, the Incas, copying the invaders, exchanged the straw roofs of their houses, temples, and palaces for a rain-resistant ceramic roof tile. Roof tiles, found in the city, became the prominent evidence that prevailed in the dispute over the location of Vilcabamba. Used for the first time by Inca builders to cover roofs in Vilcabamba, it aroused consternation among archaeologists, until descriptions of palaces with tiled roof in previously unknown accounts of the Spanish chroniclers who visited the city were found in the 20th century. In the end, Professor Guillén's expedition gained evidence that the ruins of the Espiritu Pampa were essentially Vilcabamba, the capital of the Inca in exile. It showed that the conquest did not end with the Cusco occupation by the Spanish in 1533, but actually 40 years later. Tony Halik and Elżbieta Dzikowska popularized the discovery through reports, books, and films, which have been watched by millions of viewers around the world. At Espiritu Pampa, we can still experience the impressions of the first explorers, admiring the stone structures almost completely destroyed by the jungles. Today, labyrinths of ancient walls, terraces, waterworks, baths, temples, and palaces grow out of the undergrowth of wild bushes. Once, over 15,000 residents lived here, devoted to their ruler and beliefs. What is surprising today is that in the last 20 years, less than 2,000 people have visited the city of Vilcabamba, when Machu Picchu admits about 6,000 tourists every day. Vilcabamba was the last redoubt of the Incas in a hopeless fight against the Spanish invaders, but on June 24, 1572, Spanish troops arrived. The Inca warriors fought bravely, but they lost to the Spanish. Leaving the city, Incas set fire under the granaries and temples, and as the legend says, hid treasures. This is how the last bastion of the Inca resistance fell. The looted and abandoned city became overgrown with jungle and disappeared for 4 centuries, ending the story of the powerful Inca dynasty in South America. Edmundo Guillén's expedition from 1976 is commemorated by a plaque unveiled on June 16, 2006 in a museum in Cusco. It confirmed that his expedition rediscovered the city of Vilcabamba for the rest of the world.